So now that we've built a miniature aquaponics system, now it's time to establish the water quality in there and the beneficial bacteria so that we're able to establish a good environment for our fish to live and grow, as well as provide nutrients for our plants. So what we need to do first is we need to provide a nutrient source for the beneficial bacteria. So the nitrogen cycle starts with ammonia and it moves into nitrite, then nitrate. So we want to make sure that our ammonia levels go down to a low level below 0.5 milligrams per liter. We want our nitrite levels to go down to as low as possible, around 0.05 milligrams per liter. And then we want our nitrate levels to establish and get a little bit higher so that we have a lot of plant food for our plants. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to go through and we're going to test that using a water chemistry testing kit. So this particular kit tests pH, ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. So those are some of the basics that we're interested in. It's a relatively inexpensive kit, about $30, and you can get it at your local pet store. If you want to do more in-depth testing, you can look at some more expensive kits that can do some different parameters. Some of the important factors that we're going to look at, first of all, is going to be pH. So this one measures low range and high range pH. We're trying to stay around between a pH of 6 and 7.5 or so. The next thing we're going to look at is ammonia. So total ammonia nitrogen includes ammonia and ammonium, which is the ionic form. So one of these is toxic, one of them is not. The ionized version here, NH4+, is the non-toxic version, and it's less toxic to fish at low pH. Nitrite is the next step in this process, so that's NO2. So as you can see, there's an oxygen here on this molecule, so we've added oxygen into the nitrogen, and so there's a bacteria that does this process, and then a different bacteria does the process from nitrite to nitrate. So what our goal is to end up with nitrate and very low levels of nitrite and ammonia. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this testing kit here in order to see what our levels in our water are currently, and then make sure that it's a good environment for our fish and that we have plenty of food for our plants. And also keep in mind that it's important to record these numbers so that you know for sure over time that you have the levels that you're looking for. And so we'll do that here with a data sheet. This is a version that we made in the extension store, and you can fill in the numbers here. It's important to put the date and time, which system that you're working with, who did it. So you put your initials there. You want to look at temperature and pH and dissolved oxygen, as well as ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and alkalinity. And also make notes as to any sort of changes that you see in the water chemistry as you go along. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to collect a water sample from our miniature aquaponics system, and then we're going to test our water chemistry and record our numbers. So I think my pH is going to be around 7.5. So I'm going to use the high range pH indicator in order to test this. I think that my ammonia is going to be down here in this 0.5 to 0 range. I think my nitrite is going to be at 0.5 down to 0. And I think my nitrate is going to be somewhere between 0 and 10 milligrams per liter, or parts per million. And so I'm going to use my test in order to do that. If we read, we'll go through here in the instructions. It has really simple instructions. It tells you why to test and then how to test, but we follow the directions. Each one of these is going to use 5 milliliters of your sample water. So you're going to you're going to put a little bit of water in each one of these, rinse them out, and pour it down the drain, and then you're going to fill up to the 5 milliliter line. So if you look here, there's a line on the side of this that says 5 milliliters. So we'll fill each one of those samples up to that level, and then we're going to do them sort of in order according to what the chart says on the back. So I'll do pH in this first one, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate. So I'll just have those lined up, pH, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate. That way I know that I'm not getting my colors confused and which test that I want to do. The next step is I'm going to want to put on some gloves, and I put on a lab coat and have some protection for my eyes. You know, you don't want to get any of this chemical on you. You don't want to ruin your clothes. If there's any acids, you don't want to burn holes in your clothes. So it's important to keep yourself protective. Use your personal protective equipment. and then have a place to dispose of all these chemicals whenever you're done. So our anticipated pH range is going to be between 7 and 7.5. So we have a pH test for that higher, the lower level and the higher level. So we're going to try the high level first and see what it tells us for pH. So we're going to measure that, and we're going to start with 5 milliliters of our sample, and then we're going to add 5 drops of this high range pH test solutions, and then we're going to put it in the test tube and turn it over, shake it up a little bit, and then the pH we can read immediately, and we're going to compare that color to the colors on the chart here, and then record that on our data sheet, and we'll follow those instructions for each one of these. So whenever you're testing and you get numbers that are higher or lower than what you're looking for, there's a few things that you can do in order to change that water chemistry. If you're establishing before you have fish and you have a low pH, you can add baking soda to the water to raise the pH a little bit. Other things that you can do if your ammonia levels are really high, if they're up in this range, you might want to slack off on the feed or the ammonia that you're putting into the system. You can add a little bit more baking soda to the system. So we look at putting about 40 milligrams per liter of carbonate into the water, and that's your alkalinity whenever we read that. So a little bit higher alkalinity is going to help the bacteria establish and do their job a little bit better. Also, if you have high nitrite levels, or also you can do water exchanges here if your numbers are too high, especially if you already have fish. If your nitrite levels are really high, you can also add some baking soda, or you can do water exchanges. But another trick to keep your fish healthy if you have high nitrite levels is you can add chloride from salt into the water to be about 10 times the concentration of nitrite in the water. So for example, if we're looking here and we have 1 part per million of nitrite, we can have 10 parts per million of chloride in the water, and the fish won't suffer from what we call brown blood disease or nitrite poisoning. But you do need to be careful because chloride can be toxic to your plants. So if you are getting above 500 milligrams per liter of chloride in the water, then you might have trouble growing some of your lettuce plants for sure. And then if we look at nitrate here, and we don't see our numbers establishing, it's probably because these numbers have not started to change yet, to start to go down. That means the bacteria is not established. If your levels are going way off the chart, it's probably time to add plants into the system. If you get over about 400 milligrams per liter of nitrate in the water, then your fish are going to start to suffer. If you have high levels and you don't have plants yet, you can go ahead and do some water exchanges to bring those levels back down. I recommend doing your water chemistry every couple of days for the first 2 to 4 weeks so you can watch the nitrogen cycle establish. If you need more information about water chemistry and how it works, we have some resources in the Extension online store. If you pay attention to these numbers, you'll have a successful miniature aquaponics system. So we already have our reagents here. And once we mix this up, put our cap on, we wait 15 minutes for the numbers to set up so we can read our iron levels in the water.